Hi everyone, Greg Phelps here. I wanted to take a few minutes to go over what for me has been a not unusual situation with many of my consulting assignments for the Canadian government, in that they require all publications to be bilingual. That is available in both official languages, English and French. Although some extra infrastructure and development were needed, this could easily be accomplished with SSRS reports, but there are some limitations when trying to do the same thing in Power BI. I wanted to showcase a partially manual workaround I've been using recently, and I'm interested in how others have dealt with this problem. Please feel free to leave your experiences in the comments below. With any multilingual report development effort, there are two main areas that require translated values: the report data and the report labels. For the data, if one is charged with producing multilingual reports, one can hopefully access a data source that already contains the translations of data text values. As for the labels, separate translation effort is often needed. The example I'll be showcasing today uses a multilingual approach with solutions for presenting reports in English, French, or Spanish. I've created a small sample data set, but please take all translations with a grain of salt. I'm by no means professing that any of these are the appropriate translations, but rather they are the result of basic use of out-of-context online translation tools. The translations herein are meant only to help illustrate the technique and are presented for purely educational purposes. I'll need a repository of the data and translations to present, and I have an Excel workbook with a tab for each data type. Let's take a look. First, we need a table for the languages we're going to support, and another tab for the translations for all the labels that will be used in the report. Next, we'll need translations for all the columns that we're going to use in our visuals. And finally, we'll need a data source in which all of our fact table rows don't contain any dimension information themselves, but rather only keys to the dimensions. And then we'll need a set of dimensions with translations for all of the string values in each of the languages we're going to support. And we'll just flip through a few here. So that's it for the data. Let's move on to the Power BI work. So let's load and model our data. I'll open Power Query here, and we see that we have a table for each of the tabs that were in the spreadsheet I was talking about earlier. I've also loaded the extended date table from Enterprise DNA, and we can just flip over to the modeling view and we can take a look at the simple data model we have here. We'll close this, collapse these two. So here we see standard waterfall layout with dimensions on top, fact table in the middle, measure tables on the right, and supporting tables on the lower. Then we'll need a set of translation measures, one for each label we're going to display in our report, for example, report title or visual title, etc. These measures will take into account the language selected in our language slicer and then return the appropriate value for the selected language. Here's an example. So we see here, this is by no means optimized DAX, but rather is a measure written for clarity. And this measure does three things. First, it sets the name of the label that we're going to be calculating. It looks up all three values for the label, and then it uses a simple switch true logic to return the appropriate label value. So let's take a look at our base page setup, which in this case is the English page. The first thing we'll need to do is to add a single select slicer to the page for the available language codes. I've done that here. You can see the language code coming from the languages table here, and it's set for a single select. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add three navigation buttons up in the top right. Let's just open the selection. Open up the selection pane here, and open up the header group and button French. We can see that this button has an action of page navigation, and its destination is the French one, the French page. Similarly for the Spanish is page navigation as well, and its destination is the Spanish page. Next thing we'll do is we'll add a title text box. Where are we here? And we'll add a value for the report title. Sorry, something's going on with my keyboard. Okay, so there's the first one. We put in a carriage return, put in a second value, and this one we'll put in report subtitle. Again, apologies for my keyboard. And there we can see as I switch languages, the values do change. Similarly, we're going to add a card visual in here. Sorry, I'll make it a little bit smaller. And with this card, we're going to add the selected language code into it. I'm going to go into the category and turn the category off. For the title, I'm going to turn the title on, and I'm going to use the formula option to select based on one of my translation measures, and I have a label for the language card title. I'm going to put that on here, and we can see again that this value changes with the language selection. So perfect. Okay, I'm going to delete these two now because I don't need them. I just wanted to illustrate how we use them. Finally, we'll add a table for the transactions, and here we see that I've added the transaction ID and date columns and the translation measures for product, status, province, country, and continent. We also see that I've used the transaction table title measure here. Let's just open that up and you can see here. So okay, we've handled the data changes. Now that we've got our base page for English, let's duplicate it for French, and we'll rename it to French 2. Then we can come over here and change the language slicer, and we see that the data changes appropriately. So the solution is dynamic up to this point. But we note that the column names in the transaction table are still in English, and here's where we need to do some manual work, individually changing the column names by editing the text in the field well. Remember back in our translation spreadsheet, we had a tab for columns and we have the translations for the various column names. I'm going to grab the French text corresponding to the English column, and we'll edit the name appropriately. So first, let's do the product column. Select that value. Come over here. Where are we? Change the product column. We'll do the same thing for status. Come back over here and put the French value for status. Copy that to the clipboard. Come over here and we'll paste that. So there we go. You can see that the column names now are being shown in French. So there, it's just a copy and paste operation from here on in. I won't repeat this here for the remaining columns to save time, nor will I repeat this for the Spanish page. So now to finalize the setup of the PBICS, let's make sure we only have one visible page, in this case English, and that the French and the Spanish pages are hidden. Now we'll go ahead and deploy the report to our multilingual workspace in the Power BI service. And we get our standard box here. Just wait for a second. Seems to be a little bit slow right at the moment. Okay, and then when we're done, we'll just flip over here to the Power BI service, and we'll open the report we just deployed, and there we go. We have our navigation buttons up here. If I click one French or Spanish and so on, the report is presented appropriately. And I see at the bottom that we have forgotten to hide the slicer, so I'll just flip back here, come into the Whoops, wrong one. Sorry, this is the one I want to hide for all languages. And we'll come back, we'll save that again, and then we'll republish it. To the multilingual workspace. And just a moment. Perfect. Now we'll flip over here, and if I refresh this, we'll see that the slicer has gone away. Perfect. So now the report looks as intended. So what we have here is a single report that the user can choose to view in their preferred language. But there may also be cases where the user doesn't even want to do that, but would rather open a language-specific report directly. In that case, we can leverage a single report we've already got, and we can save 3 copies of it, one for English, one for French, and one for Spanish. We can then open each report in turn and delete the navigation buttons. Further, we'll need to modify each report to ensure that we only have the appropriate language visible, and then we publish the new reports. I've already done that to save time, and now in the Power BI service we can open the report of interest directly. So if I go to the multilingual workspace, I can see that I've got an English report. It's only English. Once again, multilingual workspace. If I want to get the French report, I go to it directly. Multilingual workspace. If I want the Spanish report, I go to it directly. So I'll just bring back the main one here. So what are some of the pros and cons of each method? For the single report solution, it does use a single report, so all code is in one place and there's only one PBIX to update. It does use a single data set, so data is only loaded once. It does have a couple of limitations though. It is static in that it is a manual effort to update the column names if there are any future updates. As well, the user has to select the language of interest after opening. For the multiple report solution, the benefits include there is less work for the end user. They can immediately open the report of interest. On the limitation side, it does use multiple reports, so the code is repeated and the various versions can get out of sync. As well, it does use a copy of the data set for each language, so it is undesirable as well from a service space point of view. Another limitation is that it is more work for the developer, as the base version must be updated, and then the full multi-report deployment process must be repeated each time there are design changes. My personal preference is for the single report method, but in the end, the appropriate solution is a business decision and will be dictated by the client. Well, that's it. Just thought I'd share this workaround for presenting Power BI reports in multiple languages, and I hope you found this interesting and perhaps useful. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Enterprise DNA TV. If you enjoyed the content covered in this particular tutorial, please throw the video a like. It really helps us and we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Enterprise DNA TV channel. We have a huge amount of content coming out all the time from myself and a range of content creators, all dedicated to improving the way that you use Power BI and the Power Platform. Lastly, check out Enterprise DNA's website, plenty of resources and further learning that you can access very easily. All the best. Take care.